Flirting with around freezing temperatures. Should be relatively dry as we go through the night. Hi, I'm Chris.
Hi, I'm Sean, and this is Weather Booth. So, what is Weather Booth, Chris?
Ooh, that's a good question, Sean. The Weather Booth is a podcast where we talk about the weather. We talk about weather news, weather history, future weather. We can really talk about anything, honestly.
Yeah, and when people don't know what to talk about, what do they usually ask about? They usually talk about the weather.
Exactly.
This is
we
for
are
everyone.
we are the good starters for first date. So if you're looking for date advice, talk about the weather with us.
Just pull up this podcast and you're good to go.
That's right. All right, folks. What is our first segment today, Sean?
Today we're going to talk about the spicy winter blizzard that hit the Central Plains back in 1888. A little bit before my time.
1888.
I'm not sure if some of the older folks out there might remember this. But so let's go back in time to 1888. So it was a mid-January day. The Great Plains had been experiencing above average temperatures this midwinter, highs in like the mid 40s. And then out of nowhere, this strong cold wave pushed in from central Canada and brought frigid temperatures. And this was one of the most deadly blizzards in US history. So this is what happened. So the bitter cold started on January 11th of that year when the storm system pushed south from Canada and eventually pushed its way east into the Great Plains and the Great Lakes. Uh, the cold air that accompanied the system pushed as far south as the Mexican border, but the most severe of its impacts was around Nebraska and the Dakota region. Um, some of the continental US record lows were set during this system, the coldest of which was recorded in Fort Keogh, Montana, which was negative 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And
Negative
that,
65?
yeah, and that record low temperature stood for 45 years. It wouldn't be broken until 1933. So
Wow.
some other notable records included minus 42 degrees Fahrenheit in St. Paul, Minnesota. Shout out to you, Ross Lazier. Negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit in Spokane, Washington. And that same day, it got to a high in Spokane of minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which remains the coldest maximum temperature for the city to this day.
Wow. That is really cold. We think that below like 15 degrees is cold. I can't imagine a high of negative 10.
Yeah, like,
Seriously? That's cold.
and this was before like heaters and stuff, especially back in the Great Plains back then. People had to like use like wooden stoves and like feed the fire, so
Oh my
not a
goodness.
not a fun time.
How
So
did they like protect themselves?
actually, that's the thing is that because of the timing of the event, they had actually a seasonally warm period right before the cold blast came in. A lot of people were enjoying the seasonably warm temperatures by going outside, and obviously weather forecasting wasn't as good back then, so they were caught off guard. So what happened is that it's specifically known as the schoolhouse blizzard because many of the schoolhouses that existed on the Great Plains were sadly the had the highest number of casualties as a result of the frigid temperatures, and 235 people sadly lost their lives during this storm. And it was also the quick pace that the system moved eastward. From the morning of January 11th, it went from Montana all the way to um, where did it go to? It went all the way to the Great Lakes in the span of one day.
In the span of one day. How many miles is that? Montana to the Great Lakes?
I would say that's probably
We're
700
talking
miles.
about 1,000 miles.
Yeah, like it's insane.
That's far.
Yeah, within a few hours, it says the temperatures in the plains dropped from near freezing temperatures all the way down to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit in the span of a few hours. And it was accompanied by high winds, heavy snow, and like whiteout conditions.
That's insane. I can't imagine being through that. I haven't been through too much cold weather. I think the
Mm,
lowest I've ever gotten was negative 19 Fahrenheit.
really?
I thought that was really cold. I can't imagine what these people went through. Going from freezing to negative 20 and not even knowing it was going to happen.
Yeah, and this is
How does one?
also, yeah, and this was like not even factoring wind chills. This is like just the air temperature.
Oh
So
my
I
goodness.
can't imagine what the wind chills must have been that day. So yeah, there's many like stories about like school teachers who would keep their children, their students in their classrooms because they're like, oh, it's getting so bad, like they're gonna get lost on their way home. Sadly, in some cases, school was let out before the storm really hit, so kids were walking miles to get back to their farms and were lost in the snow. Sadly,
That is
and
really
there's
sad.
some cases where even when they were kept in their the schoolhouses, it would just get so cold that many of them would like catch hypothermia and sadly died of it. But also a lot of cattle were killed as a result. But it just goes to show how like we are fortunate nowadays to have at least some forecasting ability to be aware of these situations so we can be better prepared.
Hmm. Like the recent event in Texas.
Yeah, this
Um,
reminded me of it a lot.
I'm glad we at least knew what was going to happen beforehand. We wouldn't have known the impacts from it, but at least we knew that it was going to get really cold really fast in the Texas area.
Exactly.
So
So yeah,
that
18
those that's good for weather advancement technology.
exactly. And hint at possibly a future episode, but 1888 was a very snowy winter for the US. So another episode we'll talk about how this big blizzard struck New York City in the Northeast. So
Wow, the
keep
same
up for
one.
this is a different one. That one happened 2 months later, so it
Ooh,
was a very active season.
I can't wait to hear that, Sean.
So Chris, how can people stay safe during the winter?
That's a really good question, Sean. I'm glad you asked that. Based on Sean's weather history example from the blizzard of 1888, it's really important for many in the U.S. to stay warm during the winter. And so I gathered up a few tips and tricks for you to help to keep warm, especially when it's really cold out, like it has been this winter. So, first tip is to wear layered clothing. One thing I like about the winter is that when it's cold out, you can just keep putting more layers on to protect yourself from the cold rather than in the summer. Once it gets too hot, it's too hot. But
Hmm. Well, I like to call it the lasagna method.
the
It's
lasagna
like the
method,
lasagna. Just put on layers upon layers of clothes. If you get too warm,
wow.
take one off. If you get too cold, put one on.
So we got
Just
the
don't.
thermal, the wool long sleeve, the coat, and we got another coat on top of that. You do whatever it takes to keep warm. If it's negative 20 degrees out, you're going to want to wear a lot of layers of clothing. So, unfortunately, a lot of the children that were walking home in the blizzard of 1888 didn't have this, weren't prepared. Luckily, at least a few days out, you'll know based on your weather forecast whether it could be really cold or not, and you can also prepare accordingly. My second tip, and for the record, this has nothing to do with coronavirus, but wear a face mask. The body or the heat that comes out of your mouth from breathing gets trapped in your mask. It really warms up your face. I have never worn a face mask outside in the winter until this year, and it is a huge difference. It straight up keeps me warm. I can't understand it. I used to I used to not like walking outside in winter, but the face mask makes a big difference, especially a lot of the sensitive areas on your cheeks and mouth.
It
Have you
really
had
does
any
wonders.
experience with that?
I honestly, yes, like this whole pandemic with the face masks, especially in the winter, you just feel like there's a pocket of warmth by your face that's comforting you. Like especially it even covers up from like the strong like frigid winds that might come like hitting your in the face like a
Hmm.
like a
I have
bad
a
time.
lot of experience walking into the wind, and it's a huge help. So even if it's really cold out and there's no pandemic, wear a face mask outside. It really helps, and it could definitely protect you from hypothermia, at least temporarily. So the third tip is to walk carefully. I know this may seem pretty obvious because obviously when it's below freezing, there's a hazard for ice. And if you live in an urban area, especially, sidewalks could be very icy, especially if there's a lot of snow melt and that all freezes over, and then you just have a sheet of ice. So walk carefully. Wear boots. Don't wear slacks or something that won't have good traction in the ice. I learned that lesson a while ago, and I wore just regular shoes, just nice shoes. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it'd be icy, and I slipped and fell on my back with a backpack on. It's not fun.
Yeah. The key here is you might think you're slick wearing sneakers, but the ice is always slicker than you think you are.
That is very true, Sean. I'm sure the cars around me had a good laugh, but
That's good.
it's, it's painful. Don't do it. The last tip I have, when you're going outside, a lot of times, especially if it's snowing or even if you're playing in snow or something, change your clothing after you're outside. If your clothing gets wet, the moisture in your clothes is going to carry that cold with it, and you don't want that. That cold gets stuck to your body. It makes you really uncomfortable, and your body it kind of struggles to keep up with that. I think it's a really good idea. s- Change, even if you have to do a lot of laundry. You don't want hypothermia. I'd rather do more laundry than get hypothermia. No?
You know who didn't change and it came to bite them in the butt? Our first
Who?
president. He was out tending to his farm in the cold winter rains. I don't think it was snowing, but he decided not to change out of his wet outfit, and he got sick and he died 2 days later.
Oh goodness.
Yeah,
You don't
seriously.
want that.
So this is serious stuff.
It is very serious stuff.
And now we're going to Chris, who is in the forecast booth for the
Oh,
weather
I'm
ahead.
not there yet. I gotta go there. Hold on.
And now we're going to Chris in the forecast booth for the weather ahead.
All right. We are back at the weather, not the weather booth. Where are we? The weather kitchen? We're gonna cook up storms? This is a weather booth exclusive map discussion. So on my screen right now, we have what's currently happening right now at the time of this recording, which is Saturday, the 27th at noon. So this is what the weather map looks like around the time of this recording. And what we see is green is rain, blue is snow, pink is a mix of rain of some sort. I believe it's freezing rain. Yes, pink is freezing rain. So there's a storm system that's been affecting the area, and this should move out of the area into tonight. We can use this wind layer right here, and these icons that appear on the screen are called wind bars, and we can see a lot of them are facing north. So these lower level winds are moving the storm northeastward. They're also moving temperatures, warmer temperatures northward. So we can notice that this morning the rain snow line was near Poughkeepsie, but these southerly winds have pushed this rain snow line very far northward. And we can see by around noon or 1 o'clock, this snow line is up into New Hampshire and Maine and Canada. So we're seeing a lot of warmer temperatures into the area. Um, Warmer temperatures in the form of around the mid 30s. Let me get this layer up. So we are seeing these light green layer is in the 30s. And once you get into the dark green, that is when you start getting into the 40s. And we can see Albany is almost even into the 40s. It's 1 o'clock today. So as we get into the day, these temperatures will warm up a little bit before cooling down tonight. Should be around freezing.
So,
And the
Chris,
storm system,
I have this question about tonight. Sorry to interject.
sure.
I have this late winter hobby of mine where I like to sleep out under the stars and fall asleep to the feeling of my limbs succumbing to frostbite. Should I expect there to be any precipitation tonight so I can partake in this hobby?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me go into the precipitation real quick. Give me 2 seconds. So this is noon today, and so we should see this storm system moving out by late this afternoon. Um, there still be some terrain-induced precipitation. If you're going to stay in the valley in Albany, it should be relatively dry. Most of the precipitation is being forced out of the clouds by the mountains. So, in terms of cloud cover, I'm not sure how many clouds you're going to see. It
Mm,
doesn't look like there will be too much clearing tonight because the temperatures won't be getting too cold. It might barely just touch freezing. So, if you're looking for frostbite, you might have to sleep barefoot.
okay. I'll be sure to forget my socks, but bring just my sleeping bag.
Absolutely. So I'll look into the precipitation map for the future. So right now we're looking at 7 o'clock tonight, and so it should be relatively dry as we go through the night. Although we see that there is a another approaching storm system from the south, and so as we get into 7 o'clock Sunday morning, we can see that some of this precipitation has reached areas in Pennsylvania. And so it looks like this storm won't be affecting New York too much. It looks like it's going this, some of it will split southward into New Jersey, some of it will split north into Lake Ontario. And we can also see there might be some terrain induced precipitation into the Adirondacks and Catskills. It looks like Albany may catch a little bit of rain, but I think it's going to stay relatively dry because the mountains are going to take away the precipitation from the valley here. So it looks like it's if you're in a higher terrain area, be a little weary of some ice. It could be cold enough for some ice, but it looks like Albany itself is going to stay relatively dry for the duration of this event. You might see some light sprinkle, um, that kind of precipitation. Classic Albany day, right?
Totally, man. Totally.
So let's take a look at the temperatures for this day. So let me get rid of the precipitation and I'm going to put on the surface temperatures. And so let me scroll back to, let's scroll back to 7 a.m. So right now, it looks like Albany will be flirting with around freezing temperatures as we start the day off. And it looks like, once again, we can see this warm air. It's moving northward as the day goes on, almost even into Pennsylvania, actually, as the day goes on. So this is around 7 o'clock p.m. on Sunday evening. And it looks like we're going to stay into the mid 30s. This map is a little messy, but if you look closely, you can see Albany is at 36 degrees at around 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, Sunday evening. So it looks like the precipitation is going to move in Sunday evening and throughout the night, although it looks like it's going to stay dry in Albany. And it looks like it's also going to stay above freezing, at least in the valley. In the mountains, it might stay below freezing. This also looks like a cold front, so we could see the potential for some cold air moving in. So I'm going to turn on the surface plots again. Just to see, Albany is still at 36 degrees. And as we go through the day on Monday, we can see it's still going to be in the mid 30s in the valley. So it looks like it's going to be one of those forecasts where it's just slightly too warm for snow to form. But bring your umbrellas because it might be a little dreary. You might drive in some rainy weather if you're going out to wherever. So yeah, that has been the Chris Gens exclusive weather booth forecast.
Sounds good, Chris.
All right, folks, and that has been how to stay safe in the winter weather, cold winter weather. So, a quick summary of what I just said. You have to wear layered clothing to stay
Don't forget
warm.
about the lasagna method.
Oh, goodness. I want to make lasagna tonight now. Don't forget to wear that cloth face mask, even not in a pandemic. It keeps your face and cheeks warm. Forget to walk carefully on icy sidewalks. And last but not least, keep dry and change your wet clothing if you're playing in the snow.
Yeah, be like my jokes. Stay dry. And then I talked about the blizzard of 1888 and how sometimes it's good to appreciate the forecasting capabilities we have today so we can prepare for what's to come. This has been the weather booth. I think we forgot to pay our waitress a tip,
Okay.
so I think we have to leave the booth. So, till next week.
Till next week, where we talk about ice and snowstorms. See you later, folks. We gotta go. We gotta go. This has been the Weather Booth.